Welcome to Silent Whispers Kenya. Today we cover the story of a wealthy Kenyan businessman who allegedly hired hitmen to murder his own son. Over 160,000 Kenyan shillings paid, hitmen arrested, a father's motive tied to land, wife, and power. From Nyeri to the High Court, we follow the trail of one of Kenya's most shocking family betrayals. There are places in Kenya where family names mean everything, where land is legacy and legacy is identity. Nyeri County is one of those places. Drive through central Kenya at dusk, past the coffee plantations and tea fields, and you'll see these large houses perched on hills, generations of wealth, families whose names everyone knows. But in late 2020, one of those names became something else entirely. It became a whisper, the kind of story people lean in to tell, the kind that makes you question everything you thought you knew about family. This is the story of Stephen Wang'ondu, businessman, landowner, father, and his son Daniel Mwangi Wang'ondu, and the hitmen who say they were paid to end Daniel's life. I'm your host, and this is Silent Whispers Kenya. The date is December 31st, 2020, New Year's Eve. Daniel Mwangi Wang'ondu was 32 years old. By all accounts, he was enjoying the evening in Mwiga town with his friends. Just a regular night out. Drinks, conversation, maybe some music. People celebrating the end of a difficult year. Around midnight, Daniel left the pub. He was heading home to Muyogo village. It's not a long walk, the kind of route you'd think nothing of if you'd done it 100 times before. But Daniel never made it inside his gate that night. His body was found just outside the family home, bludgeoned, the kind of violence that speaks to rage or cold calculation or both. Now, in any murder case, the first question investigators ask is, who had motive? Who benefits from this person's death? And the answer they found, it wasn't what anyone expected. See, this wasn't a robbery gone wrong. This wasn't a random act of violence. According to what police would later uncover, this was personal, deeply and disturbingly personal. The investigation started peeling back layers of a family dispute that had been building for months, maybe years. At the center of it all, land, business, and a woman, Daniel's ex-wife. Here's where it gets complicated. After Daniel and his wife divorced, something unusual happened. Stephen Wang'ondu, Daniel's father, allegedly brought his son's ex-wife back into the family home. Not just that, he reportedly set up a business for her. Now, I want you to imagine that for a moment. Your marriage ends, you're trying to move on, and your father brings your ex-wife back into the picture. Not to reconcile you two, but to keep her in the family fold, to invest in her future. Daniel objected strongly. And according to those close to the family, the tension between father and son became explosive. But here's what makes this case so chilly. This wasn't just a family argument that got out of hand. What prosecutors would later allege was that Stephen Wang'ondu didn't just want his son quiet, he wanted him dead. The investigation moved quickly once police started connecting the dots. In March 2021, just a few months after Daniel's murder, the headlines hit. Nyeri tycoon charged with plotting son's murder. The details that emerged painted a picture of calculated planning. According to prosecutors, Stephen Wang'ondu didn't act alone. He allegedly consulted with two people, very close to him, his personal driver and his assistant. People he trusted. People who had access to his daily life, his thoughts, maybe even his darkest impulses. The price tag, 160,000 Kenyan shillings. That's what investigators say was arranged for the killing. Think about that number. Not millions, not even 500,000. For 160,000 Kenyan shillings, a father allegedly put a bounty on his son's head. On February 20th, 2021, police made their move. 4 suspects were arrested in coordinated raids. 2 were picked up in Nairobi, 1 in Githurai, another in Pipeline Estate. 2 more were arrested in Muiga and Embu. Court records show that Wang'ondu and 4 others were brought before the Nyeri High Court, where the charges were read: murder, conspiracy to commit murder. All 5 pleaded not guilty. Now, I've covered a number of cases, and there's always this moment in court when you watch the accused hear the charges. Some break down, some look defiant, some just shut down. But imagine being in that courtroom, a father standing trial for his son's murder, the son laying in a grave, the hitmen pointing fingers, the evidence laid out piece by piece, payment records, phone logs, witness statements. What goes through your mind when you realize someone you trusted with your life was the one planning to take it? But here's where this story takes another turn. On May 8th, 2021, just 2 months before being charged, Stephen Wang'ondu died. The official word was natural causes. The tycoon who had built an empire in coffee and land, who had wielded power and influence across central Kenya, was gone. And with his death came questions that will probably never be fully answered. Did the stress of the case contribute to his death? Was it truly natural? Or was there something else at play? Something that powerful people do when walls start closing in? I'm not suggesting foul play, but I'm saying this. When someone dies before they can face full trial, before all the evidence is presented, before witnesses are cross-examined, justice becomes complicated. For the Wang'ondu family, Stephen's death meant one chapter closed, but the murder case, that remained very much open. The driver, the assistant, the alleged hitman, they were still in custody, still waiting for the day in court, still part of a story that wouldn't end just because the man who allegedly orchestrated it was no longer alive. And Daniel was still dead, his voice permanently silenced, his version of events buried with him, the legal proceedings dragged on. You know how it goes in Kenya. Delays, adjournments, lawyers filing motions. Months turned into years. Evidence gets cold. Memories fade. Public attention moves on. Meanwhile, that land that allegedly sparked this whole tragedy, still there. The business interests still being sorted out. The inheritance that should have passed from father to son, now tangled in court documents and disputed claims. That is what murder does to a family. It doesn't just take one life. It fractures everything, past, present, and the future. Let me be honest with you about something. This case isn't just about one family's tragedy. It's about a pattern we see again and again in Kenya. When you have money, when you have status, when your family name opens doors, the justice system works differently for you. We will never know if Steven Wang'ondu was guilty. That was never determined in court. But I'm saying this: wealthy suspects navigate the system in ways that ordinary Kenyans can't. They get better lawyers, they can't afford bail, they have connections that make phone calls, that smooth edges, that create doubt where there might otherwise be clarity. And when they die before a trial, there's no accountability, no moment where they have to face the accusers, no jury deciding guilty or innocence, just an ending, ambiguous and unsatisfying. Meanwhile, victims like Daniel become statistics. Their stories get compressed into few paragraphs in a newspaper. Their families are left with grief and unanswered questions. Think about Daniel's mother. Think about his siblings, if he had any. Think about his friends who said goodbye to him that New Year's Eve, thinking they'd see him again. What closure do they have? And here's the bigger question. How many other cases like this exist in Kenya? How many family disputes over land and money and power end in violence? How many of them actually make it to court? How many get the attention this case got simply because the accused was wealthy enough to make headlines? The harsh truth is this: your value in the eyes of the justice system often correlates with your value in the economy. That shouldn't be true, but sadly it is. So where does that leave us? Daniel Mwangi Wang'ondu was 32 years old when he died. He had a whole life ahead of him. Dreams maybe, plans for the future, perhaps even plans for his own legacy, separate from his father's. All that ended outside a gate on New Year's Eve. Stephen Wang'ondu built an empire. Land, coffee, business. A name that commanded respect across Nyeri. But if the allegations are true, his final legacy isn't prosperity, it's patricide, or rather the intent of it. The hitmen, the assistants, the conspirators, they're still somewhere in the system, waiting. And justice is still incomplete. So I'll leave you with this. In a country where land is everything, where family names carry weight, where wealth opens doors and closes mouths, who speaks for the victims? Who ensures that power doesn't become immunity? And when the answer to who killed him might be his own father, what does that say about the value we place on human life? This is Silent Whispers Kenya. We tell the stories others only whisper about. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. Share with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, silence protects the powerful. Speaking up protects everyone else.